Welcome back to Open Line. I'm Hannah McDonald. Tonight we're talking about identity depression. And when it comes to mental health, it can be a feeling or problem that doesn't present itself into later years in life. That is why we are talking about retirees and identity depression. But we got to start at the beginning. Between the ages of 14 and 20, often people have a feeling of that mental health condition, and it doesn't get diagnosed for years. Jackie Cavnar is here from the Mental Health of America, Midsouth, and she's the expert. So I'm going to stop talking, Jackie. You were just saying to me in our break, it can be not until 25 that someone actually talks to a doctor about feelings that they've had for many, many years, and then that can continue on later into life.
Hannah, that is exactly right. We know that most mental illnesses manifest between 14 and 20, often go undiagnosed until 25 or even later into the 20s, possibly even into the 30s. And we often say at work, before stage 4. You know, why wait until there's a crisis or something terrible that happens before you seek help for mental health? Because nobody would ever wait until they had stage 4 cancer to finally seek treatment for cancer. So it's very important that we look and observe throughout someone's entire life, wherever they are on the spectrum. And that is why so many things don't pop up until later into retirement, because it may be something that someone has very successfully masked or dealt with through their teens and 20s. And as they've had successes throughout their career, you know, they could have had some down moments and brushed it off, or maybe not given it the full attention that it needed. And then when they do retire and there isn't a lot of busy time and a lot of busy work to fill their day, that's when things really start to explode or become more obvious to their friends and families and their networks. And we have many programs at Mental Health America, as we sometimes say, from the womb to the tomb, and like to do a lot of preventive work in children and through the teens. Well,
yes, and I'm glad that we're talking about this, because there's news of the day about this. Mental health is part of the conversation now. It may not have always been the case, but even on Capitol Hill here in Tennessee, the governor is talking about it. What exactly happened today involving funding in K through 12 classrooms?
I am so glad that you asked me about that. I happened to be on the Capitol today, and Governor Lee held a press briefing and had Commissioner Marie Williams from the Department of Mental Health and Substance Abuse Services with him, along with many other people who support this initiative. But the governor today announced a fund of $250 million to be put in trust or endowment, so that we could invest that money and use the principal from that money to fund programs specifically to address mental health issues for children in kindergarten through 12th grade throughout the state of Tennessee. And these are children who are having more issues with anxiety and depression, which has manifested itself so much during this time of COVID and become more prominent during COVID. And he was so excited and so proud that the commissioner for the Department of Education and Commissioner Williams from Mental Health and Substance Abuse Services had identified this issue and had found a way to work together to put this money to use specifically within the education system.
There was a statistic that was said today that the approximate prevalence of any mental illness in the past year, as we talk about this pandemic, among Tennessee youth is about 300,000. That is a huge number, Jackie.
Yes, it is huge. It is huge. And one of the more scarier statistics they talked about today, too, was the increase in the number of suicides in children between 10 and 17, and how that had increased over the past 5 to 6 years. And it is something that is preventable, and it is something that we can address, and we can reduce the stigma and work with families and work with children and work with school teachers and the school counselors to give them tools that they need to help head off that horrible crisis.
You know, I want to make sure that we really keep on our discussion tonight about identity depression when it comes to retirees. And something we just said, maybe think of careers. We're talking about educators, you're talking about teachers, school nurses. Talk about a job that you put your all into, and leaving that profession has got to be challenging. And that's why we're talking about this idea of depression after a fulfilling career. So can you remind people what is exactly happening with this new group for retirees and people that might have some mental health concerns about this new phase of their life?
Yes, if anyone is interested at all in participating in this group, they may certainly call our office at 615-269-5355, and we can help get you involved, fully participating with this group of individuals. They meet on a monthly basis. Pre-COVID, they were meeting at 50 Forward, at one of the locations for 50 Forward, which does phenomenal work around Davidson County and Middle Tennessee for retirees and people entering that new phase of their life. And one of our board members leads that group and the discussion, and they do other things as well to kind of mix it up, having coffees and luncheons and guest speakers and people who can just really help them work through this particular phase of their life, because there are a lot of changes, physical changes, mental changes, things that are now different, routines, expectations, matching expectations. So, but again, we're more than happy to help get anyone who is questioning where they are and possibly needing a little bit of help. Now, definitely clued into this.
Right. Now, Jackie, you and I are obviously not in the same room together. We're communicating over technology that we've gotten pretty good at over the last 13 months. For anybody who might be skeptical of opening up, especially over this format, I'm wondering if you've had any experience in the last year communicating with people that are dealing with their mental health and they're using Zoom. How is that going?
Yeah, actually, surprisingly well. We have been able to actually reach more people because you don't have the constraints of travel and finding a location. We have actually been very surprised how easier it has been. I am very surprised myself, quite honestly, but also using FaceTime as another tool if it's a one-on-one conversation. We also have a caregiver support person on staff who works with caregivers for family members who have an Alzheimer's or a form of dementia diagnoses. So just being able to have Zoom, FaceTime, different tools to be able to walk through someone's home, look at things as doorknobs, water faucets, carpets that you may have in your home that may be a trip hazard or a fall hazard, things that you can see without having to worry about going into someone's home and either developing COVID yourself or fear of carrying COVID to a family who's already dealing with so much. The technology's just been amazing.
Such a terrific point that we are now able to access each other in ways we weren't doing it beforehand. We're going to take another quick break. We're going to talk a little bit more about this pandemic and how it's affected all of us in careers, all of us who are no longer working. It's been a bit of a shakeup to not have something to do every day, and that's what we're talking about tonight on Open Line. We'll be right back.